Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Megan Padua Buzza as we visit the other side of the club, the golf side. I personally know Megan from my time at Maidstone, where she was the head pro for junior golf for 15 years. She's a superstar and beloved golf pro, certified by both the PGA and LPGA. She's recognized as a top 50 LPGA teacher, a top 50 growth of the game elite teacher by Golf Range Association of America. She's one of Golf Digest's best young teachers in America and a U.S. Kids Golf top 50 Master Kids teacher. That was a mouthful.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be really a lot of fun.
Yeah, so excited to talk with you today. And I was also going to mention that you're from California and played at Penn State where you were captain of the golf team. That's pretty awesome. And you studied professional golf management. So that's really cool. We have a similar program on the tennis side. So I want to ask you about that as well. But my first question, of course, is going to be, are you playing any tennis these days? Because I know we used to trade golf lessons for tennis lessons when we were both at Maidstone, and that was really fun. Have you kept up with your tennis at all?
So I haven't. So I definitely need to get with you for a lesson because I had in the last couple of years, I've had 2 babies. And so it's definitely cut back on my tennis reps. But I'll definitely be looking forward to getting my lessons in with you next
time. I can imagine that you're super busy. And it was always so fun to see how naturally it transferred from golf to tennis and vice versa. So that was always really cool to see how natural, at least I like to think that I was a golf and that you were a tennis.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that was a highlight for me when we were working at the club, was being able to go to the other side and come over and practice tennis with you guys. And then I always loved when you came over and played golf with us.
So fun. And I want to learn about you. You know, we never had these conversations, even though we worked together for many years, but I want to know how you got into coaching golf. We mentioned you started at the PGM program, but did you always know, kind of maybe in your teenage years as you were growing up, that you wanted a career in teaching golf?
Yeah, that's a great question because I actually have always been in golf. I'm one of the type of people that I've never been in food and beverage or any other kind of the business. I've only been in golf. So I started working at a public golf course near where I lived. And it was actually just in the cart barn and working, cleaning off the carts and putting them away. So that was my first job. And it was great because I got unlimited golf privileges. And that's really what helped me get my golf game to where it needed to be to play in college. And then after that, my older brother, he actually majored in golf at a different university at New Mexico State, because there's about 19 universities that have the golf program. So I said, man, that's exactly what I should be doing. So I started looking into different PGM programs. And that's when I found Penn State, and it was a perfect fit. But it really wasn't until I got to Maidstone that I knew that my passion was teaching golf. And it was really because of the head pro, Eden Foster. He really kind of guided me to where I realized that, oh, yeah, that's actually what my purpose is as a PGA professional. And so it really helped me narrow it down and focus on teaching golf.
Did you graduate and then go right into teaching at Maidstone, or were you doing an internship before you
So
graduated?
it was my last internship for college, and then it turned into many years of being there at the club.
And what's your favorite age group to teach? I know you worked a lot with the juniors there, but you were telling me that in Florida you worked with adults too. But what's your favorite?
Yeah, so I've been lucky. I've been able to teach anywhere from about 18 months all the way to 91, I think was my oldest client. And for me, I really enjoy all age groups. I think it's more of how excited they are to play golf. I think that's a big difference maker. If you have a junior golfer that's clearly being kind of forced to play by their parents, that's not as appealing as someone that's really motivated to get better. So even with the juniors, obviously that's one of the fun parts, is trying to get them to find their own passion for it. So many times you can turn a kid from being forced to do it to having it be their favorite sport.
I always thought it was so interesting because we had a big program for the kids at Maidstone, and On the tennis courts, it's very different because we can spread everyone out. So as long as we have enough staff, we can spread out and do different activities, kind of rotate from court to court. I always wonder, how do they do it in golf? Because you have a big course. Like, do you go one hole at a time? Like, how did you spread everyone out? You had so many
Yeah,
kids.
so that's a really good question. With golf, it's one of the few sports where you play and practice in a different arena. So here we have this big practice facility. So when
Mm,
we would have the junior golfers, it wasn't always on the course. As often as we could, we would go on the course and break into different groups and just play different games, not necessarily your standard golf game, but maybe it would be a better ball situation or different types of matches that we would play when we had larger groups. But on the driving range, it gave us an opportunity to split it up between short game, full swing. We could focus on the driver. And then something that we always like to incorporate, which I remember hearing a lot about over at tennis too, is a lot of games. And
yeah.
that's what really gets the kids hooked on enjoying and playing with their friends.
Yes, games, joy, fun. I mean, that is how you learn. At least that's my philosophy. And especially when it comes to kids, like they got to have fun. Otherwise, they're not going to want to do it. There's too many other things that they can be doing. And if they're being forced by their parent, it's not fun for them and it's not fun for the coach either. So I'm always about, yeah, make sure they're learning, but also make sure that they're having fun and that they're enjoying it. Right. So I think they're equally important. But one of my favorite things that I always kind of looked up to you and how you did it with the junior program was how good you were at instilling like good values and sportsmanship into the program, right? And that's a huge part of golf, right? There's a lot of etiquette. You have to be honest, like in tennis, a lot of honesty and character. It reveals your character, as we say, right? But I love for you to share some of those things that you did with the kids and in the junior program. I know you had like these little report cards and things you would do. You also did like some meditations and things like that, which you got a little pushback from at times, but yeah.
See, that was one of my favorite things that we did was not meditations, we called them focus drills. So
Yes, I
it was
love that.
meditation. It was meditation. But we would say to the kids, is focus important in golf? And they'd say yes. And so we said, okay, we're gonna do these focus drills. And they would just be simple things like focusing on a pencil. I'd hold up a golf pencil and all the kids would just look at it and focus for about 1 minute and then we'd switch to a different thing. Close your eyes and listen to what sounds you hear outside of your head. And so it was interesting because when we started doing that, we did notice with the junior golfers, just they were much happier actually. They definitely listened a lot better and they were excited. They were the ones when they got to golf, they would ask, can we please do focus drills? They love doing them. So that was one thing that we really enjoyed. The behavior scorecards were great. It was actually a scorecard that the kids were really proud of that they would actually want to go home and put on their refrigerators to show everybody that their behavior was good that week. And it was just a weekly scorecard that we would give. And the bogeys and birdies were actually based off of how their behavior was. So if someone made a mistake, they would make a bogey. And we would just say to them, it's okay. You're going to make bogeys. You're going to make mistakes. Now, what do you need to do now? And then they'd say, okay, I need to try to make a birdie. And so we would always give them a chance. Like it was never that, oh, this kid's so bad. It was more of like, hey, what do we need to do now? And how are we going to behave to make up for it? And so they started to understand that everybody makes mistakes, right? So
Yeah.
it's just an opportunity to how do you bounce back from that? So that was always fun. And it's cute too, because I'll even say it to kids off of the golf course. I'll say like, hey, you're gonna get a bogey. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, well, that means that you weren't listening and that you weren't on your best behavior. So I'm gonna have to give you a bogey. And they're like, no, it's okay. I'll do better. Another thing that we would do to kind of focus on the kids learning about the values, core values on the golf course is we would do, it was called a fruit of the week and then a core value of the week. So they kind of ended up associating them together. But let's say the fruit of the week was a banana, just talking about just some healthy things that we could be doing for our body
Yeah.
and things that we could be eating and stuff. So then we'd say, okay, the core value of the week would be responsibility. And then we would say, what's the healthy habit of the week? And so it would be like, oh, walking the golf course and carrying your bag, or drinking water, wearing a hat. There's all sorts of things that we could cover in, I believe it was like an 8 or 9 week
Yeah.
stretch of the junior golf program. So that gives you an opportunity to cover each week something that they could be doing for the betterment of their body, and then also to take care of the golf course as well.
Hmm.
So we
Yeah.
kind of tried to cover it all, but
Yeah.
it certainly does make it less about golf and more about building a all around person, athlete, and then if you can build all that, you'll most of the time have someone that loves golf at that point,
Yeah.
and it's just a good recipe for success.
And for success of the program too, because then they'll stick with it, right? And continue to play it for their whole life. And then now once they grow up and become adults, they're the new members of the club. So it's healthy all around. But I was also wondering, what is the most practiced shot in golf? Is it putting? I love to just drive. Actually, my favorite one, I'll tell you, is chipping, because it's more similar to tennis. I feel like it's almost like a
Oh,
slice.
cool.
Um,
Yeah,
most
so I
practiced.
would say the most practiced shot in golf is definitely the most popular is the driver. We really, as instructors, we kind of start them with like a mid iron. I would say the lower number irons are the harder ones to hit, the longer irons. So we focus like more on the middle range ones, let's say like a 7 or an 8. As instructors, we tend to spend a lot of time there. And then the most popular would be the driver. So in a lesson, the goal is always to make sure that the students able to try to hit a drive, because that's really, if you're starting a player, that's one of the shots that will bring someone back.
Yeah.
It's so gratifying. I do specialize in putting, so one of the things that I've done as a coach is I kind of specialize in some areas that people don't necessarily practice in as much. So what I find is that when people come to me for putting, they really want to improve their putting. So they're
Mhm.
very driven to, I'm going to go see someone that specializes in putting. And then from there, they'll take a putting lesson, and then they say, oh, well, I really need help with my wedges. And then next thing I go, oh, well, I teach all of it, but I specialize in that area. So I find as a coach that that really helps me make a huge difference for my students, because now they're coming to me with a big problem that they know I have a lot of expertise in. And then from there, they realize, oh, well, Megan actually teaches the whole game, which helps me really get loyal students.
And putting seems like it would be the easiest to practice, because you don't need that much space, and you can maybe make it fun and go putt, even though putt's probably totally different from like actual putting. But what do you think? Is it totally
Well,
different?
have you played? Have you heard of pop stroke? So Top Golf is really popular in the golf industry. It's just where people can go to the driving range.
Oh, I love
Pop
top.
stroke. Oh yeah, who does it,
Yeah, it's so
right?
fun.
So Top Golf is great, and then but Pop Stroke was actually developed by Tiger Woods, and it's a putting
Oh yeah, I've
course.
heard of that.
Yeah, and what's really cool about it is that it's not your typical mini golf with the elephants and all
Yeah.
the animals and stuff, and what you would expect is it's real golf for putting. And so what is nice is what you're explaining. You really could go out and play and practice out in that situation, and it is just like you're on a golf course.
Mhm.
But you are right, putting, you can get so creative, and that's one thing that I love about coaching it, is that I think a lot of people that don't know a ton about instruction of putting, they'll say, oh, it's individual, everyone just kind of does their own thing. But there absolutely are things that will make you a better putter. Just like simple, like green reading, knowing where you're aiming, and then obviously what type of putter somebody's using. So there are so many factors that will just take you different levels with your putting. So that's what I like, is being able to like share these little like secrets with people that just take them to a totally different game, because it is the game within the game of golf, right? So it's nice to be able to really transform somebody's whole putting game.
Yeah. I think I may need to take some putting lessons, because yeah, like my husband always jokes around. He says, I have the touch of a gorilla. because like I can
That's
get to the
funny.
green. I can get to the green, but then it's like I just there's so many tries, right, to get to the hole. So
Yeah, and I think, that's the other thing too is most people, if you ask them, hey, have you ever taken a putting lesson? Most people will say, no, I haven't. I've taken golf lessons, and maybe like 5-10 minutes on putting. That's the difference, is that really a focused lesson on putting just makes a huge difference.
and I see behind you, you have such a cool background. Not to mention that because I know you're in your house and that's like your own personal simulator, which I think that's like baller. That's next level. That's amazing.
This is one of the exciting parts about we just moved to Texas. We made a big move for the family beginning of last year. And when we checked out this house, there was this huge space in the upstairs that we said, oh, maybe it's a playroom. But I guess it was storage for the
Yeah.
people before us. And we looked at it and we said, yep, this is going to be our golf room. This is perfect. And we used a company local, this indoor golf performance lab. They came in here. They put this whole thing together. So they built it and we were just like shocked that they were able to fit this in here. So
Yeah.
indoor golf did a good job with that. But yeah, my husband, he's also we're both golf instructors. So
Yeah.
so obviously there's a lot of golf talk in this house, and it's just nice to be able to sneak away, and we can put different golf courses on there, and you can play 9 holes really fast. Like I think it takes like 20 minutes to play 9 holes on there. So
That's awesome. Does that give you any feedback on like your form and your swing and things like that?
So we have a lot of we just set up video in here and we can record some swings. My husband has one that can do it in 3D, so we can analyze it not just in a 2D video, but you can really see what the body's doing. So that technology, we have those different things, but on the screen, I mean, sometimes we'll just have like a football game on and we can hit balls. You can put anything on the screen here, which is good. And then we do have that simulation system where you can actually play the golf course.
That's unbelievable. It's funny because in my own house, I don't have a, I need to grow up. I don't have like a dining table. I have a ping pong table in my dining room
No,
because
that's
otherwise I
seriously
wouldn't have space. Yeah, otherwise
that's
I wouldn't have
seriously
the
us. That we have like a small kitchen table, and then we have like a foosball table
yeah.
where like the actual dining room table should go.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So don't
funny.
worry, we understand for sure.
Yeah, it's all great until you get visitors or you want to like host people for dinner and then you're like, shoot, where are we gonna sit? Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Oh, that's
All right.
great.
So now just kind of switching gears to more of the like certification world for golf. I'm just curious to learn a little bit about that. Because I wonder if it's somewhat similar to tennis or not, but how does it work in golf? Because we mentioned that you're PGA and LPGA certified. What does that mean? Are they separate? I kind of Googled it and I found that there's like so many different entities that can certify you as a golf pro. So I was like, I'll just ask her when I talk to her.
Yeah, it's such a good question. So the PGA of America is very different than the PGA Tour. Even though they're both like, if you say I'm a PGA member, the PGA Tour, those are the professionals that we see playing on tour, and the LPGA Tour, those are different than the PGA member that I'm talking about, which is a teacher, a coach, a golf professional in the golf shop. It's a totally different role. Now, the PGA of America, what's really exciting is where we just moved here to Frisco, Texas. They actually relocated the headquarters here. So that's another thing that we've been thrilled about since moving here, is that there's a lot of growth in this area, and in the headquarters here, they're doing some really exciting things. They've really built a beautiful facility, and there's a huge property where you can go with restaurants and like a huge putting green in the middle. It's all connected with the Omni Hotel.
Yep.
But that would be the home base for the PGA professional. And it is a different association than the LPGA. So even though they do a lot of things together, the LPGA is just for female golf professionals. I'm a member of both and I've really enjoyed it. I just feel like I get really different experiences with both and respect both associations. So I'm part of the belief that if you want to be a part of making everything better, so like I want to be involved in both associations. So for me, I see a lot of value in being a member of both.
Gotcha.
And so they do really have different offers to become a PGA or an LPGA professional. You do go through different levels of training. So I was able to do it during college, but a lot of people will do it if they decide to become a golf professional. It is a lot of work. It's very tedious, but at the end of it, it's really rewarding to be able to say that you're a PGA professional or LPGA professional. It's definitely comes with a lot of credit, and it's highly recommended if you're going to be in the golf business to become a member of one of the associations.
That's awesome. And do they have like different, like, I'm asking because this is how it kind of works in tennis, is that you have different levels. It's basically based on how well you score on the certifying test, and then you can retake it and upgrade or whatever. But is that the same in golf or no?
Yeah, so one thing that you is required to become a golf professional is you have to pass, it's called a player ability test, and that is one that really can be a make or break for a lot of people. If you have to be able to shoot under a certain score, and
Mm.
it's definitely not easy, especially in the conditions of you're under pressure, you have to beat that score. I was kind of lucky because I did it when I was in high school. Before I went to college, I took the player ability test and I passed it. And I didn't realize that it could be hard. I just thought, okay, I passed and that was it. And then when I went to college, I saw the amount of pressure that was being put on all the other kids that hadn't taken it. So they would go and take their test. And especially in college, you tell everyone, okay, I'm taking my player ability test. And of course, that would put all the pressure in the world on their shoulders. And then you
Yeah.
would see time and time again, certain kids wouldn't be able to pass it. And I remember thinking like, wow, I'm really glad I took it back when I didn't realize how important it
Yeah.
was, because I never even felt any pressure. I just went out and had a fun day. And that's when you're going to perform your best, is when
Yeah.
you're not putting the world's pressure on your shoulder. You just go out and just have fun. I know my best rounds of golf have been when I'm not putting a ton of pressure on myself. But yeah, that player ability test is really important and could be a make or break. But you were asking about the different levels. So there's a class A status, which would be like the highest level. And then for each of them, there's like an apprentice for the PGA, and LPGA has a class B. So there are some different levels, but a full member is going to be class A. From there, with like the PGA, there's different categories that someone's in because there are so many types of PGA professionals. So like I'm considered like an A6 member because I'm an instructor, where if someone's a head professional, they would be an A1. So it kind of puts everybody into different, I mean, there's lots of different categories. So you have your merchandisers, and you have all the range of many hats that a PGA professional wears. It's a lot.
How you move to like to a different level? Is it just retaking a test, or are you like having to take a different type of course or a different type of test?
So that's where more of what you were saying with the certification. So once you become a PGA professional, you have to keep your membership by, and same with the LPGA, you have to keep the membership by doing a certain amount of education every year and attending meetings. So you have your points that you have to achieve. And then from there, it's more of the specialization we were talking about, of like getting certifications for different things. So like an example, I'm certified in golf fitness, TPI. It's a big thing in golf, is how your body moves, and being able to understand that your limitations physically can affect the golf swing. So that would be a certification. Another one that I've received is, I mentioned like green reading. So I'm an aim point instructor, which is a green reading system that they use on all the professional tours. And that was an extra training. So it's like a continued education of different things that will make you stand out once you do become a golf professional.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes so much more sense to me, actually. I like And I just read a bunch of accolades for you being a top 50 coach. I remember hearing about that actually when I was at Mason. Yeah, she's a top 50 coach. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, that sounds awesome. But I didn't even know like what entity, whatever. It sounds cool. And I like that golf does that for coaches. We don't have that in tennis,
Oh, wow.
unfortunately. I was part of a thing a few years ago. It was with the tennis channel, and they did like the top 20 coaches. But you kind of have to like get people to nominate you, right? For it. How does that work in golf? Is it based on like nominations from students? Is it based on your education? How does that work?
That's a really good question. I would say, well, they're all kind of different lists. So some of them are peer selected, which is always a nice compliment when you have your peers voting for you. A few of them are committee based. So they'll have like a lot of times like a panel of top teachers that, hey, who are the next up and coming teachers? And then they'll put the names in for review. And then a few of them are self where you apply and then they just take all the applicants and decide. So there's really a lot of different ones, but I've always felt with those awards and everything that if you really are passionate about teaching golf and if you just, for me, I always like using social media. So I was always saying like, hey, look, these are the things I'm doing at Maidstone. This is kind of some things that I do when I'm teaching golf. We might hit water balloons or we might do like certain games and I'll put them up for people to see and share. And then I found that a lot of that, just sharing what I do, was what actually got me recognized as some of those top teachers because it was just showing that, hey, this is a really fun job that I have. And these are the kind of things that I do to get results with people. So I find if you're willing to share your ideas, it's interesting how much more I was recognized for that. And I think that that is just a better approach. Like with that comes you get these nice recognitions without worrying too much about it. It was
Yeah.
always one of those, I think when I was receiving these awards, I'm like, man, it's, you feel so honored because it's like such a surprise. It never feels like I'm doing work. It's just something I just enjoy so much. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool being like getting a recognition for something that doesn't even feel like you really had to work that hard for. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be nice, right? I mean, you're doing
Yeah.
what you love and then being recognized for it. I think that's perfect for anyone in any career.
It's a great, I do love what I do and it's fun to be able to share it with other people. But it's
Yeah.
been just a really like a blessing that, like you said, the awards that having those, the different ones, because it is interesting they don't have that in the tennis world. I didn't know that.
No, we don't have that. I mean, they do have awards, like the different like certifying associations, like they'll do their awards and stuff every year. But
Okay.
it's not like a list of pros. Like these are the pros that, we're recognizing this year. I like that because it creates more opportunity for more pros, right? Than just like selecting one award a year or whatever. So yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And maybe something that tennis can learn from, I like that.
Yeah. Hey,
Mhm.
I'd like to see you're
Yeah.
you're top of my list though. I don't need a list. I'm coming to you. So
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's cool. I mean, and cool for the professionals too, so
yeah, it's a nice little group of people too that I feel like a lot of times we'll team up with other instructors and
yeah.
yeah, kind of the running joke at our house with my husband and I both being golf instructors is that he just got back from the PGA show and he got an award for being a top 50 growth of the game teacher, right? But he came back and he said, well, geez, you know, I got my award and then I went and picked up yours, which was like twice the size because I'm one of the elite teachers. And so he's like, man, here I get this award, but I'm still number two in the house.
That's right. Girls
Like,
rule. Which actually takes me to my next topic, which is what I want to know what it's like to be a female golf pro. Just because, like in tennis, I think it can at times be an advantage. And I feel like golf is a little bit more, what's the proper word to use? I don't know how to say that, but like, I don't want to call it misogyny. Is it misogyny? I don't know. Like, there's still clubs that only allow men, right? So I can only imagine that it's more challenging as a female golf pro to kind of break through barriers and certain perceptions from people. So I don't know. I want you to kind of speak about that a little bit, if you don't mind sharing your experiences as a female golf pro. And do you think it's an advantage, or do you think that it's held you back in any way?
I think I've been really lucky that a lot of previous groundwork was done by other golf professionals before me. So other women in the business have kind of paved the path for me. So
Yeah.
I've never personally found it to be a challenge or a negative. It's always been a positive. I feel like when I go into let's say a room of PGA professionals, I might be the only one in the room, the only female.
Hmm.
And so for some people, they could feel like really like that's a disadvantage. But in my opinion, I've always thought it's a huge advantage because you stand out, definitely stand out when you're the only female professional in the room.
Hmm.
So it just depends a lot of times, I guess, on how you look at that. It could make you feel a certain way, but I've always felt that it's a advantage. And then from there, I've been very blessed that I've always, and this is just kind of a luck of the draw thing, I think, but I've always happened to work for professionals that supported females in the business. Cause I think that would obviously be a huge part of it is if you just worked for someone that just didn't value you or didn't allow you to succeed. Where I actually and I guess that's the thing is I wouldn't last very long
Right.
if I didn't work for someone that supported me because I don't think I could stay in that situation. But I also was just very blessed that I had professionals that would tell me, "Hey, you're going to have to work twice as hard because you're a female." But at the same time, I just have always found that opportunities will come about. Like I know a lot of clubs across the country are really seeking to bring female professionals to their team. So one of the things that I've done in my career is I started a private group on Facebook for golf professionals that are women. So it's just a private group of us, and I think there's like 700 female
Oh,
professionals in the group. Yeah, so it's really grown.
yeah.
But the purpose of it is that I had so many people contact me saying, "Hey, would you want to come and work here and there?" And I was very content at my job situations at the time. So I was like, "Hey, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know who to send your way." So I started the group, and since then, it's really helped connect a lot of people with different jobs. It kind of just closes that gap a little bit, but amongst that group, we're also able to give support to other female professionals. And it is amazing some of the topics that come up. And I sit there and go, wow, I haven't experienced that in the business is that it can be tough if you work for the wrong person. But I was going to tell you, it was fun the other day because I just had a baby 3 months ago and I brought her I think she was about a month old. There was a PGA teaching seminar. And so I brought the baby with me to the seminar, and I had so many, like, this is a room definitely majority men, and so many of them were just incredibly supportive, and they just thought it was so awesome that I brought the baby. And it obviously that could have gone a different way, right? So I think that things are starting to change, but even things like that, like I had people thanking me like, "Oh, thank you for bringing the baby," because it does show that it's possible for a mom to be a golf instructor too. That was obviously the thing kind of tearing at me at time. The baby was a month old.
Yeah.
Yes, I could get a babysitter for the day, but I don't want to be away from my brand new baby, especially at the time this baby needs me all the time. So it was just nice to be able to kind of have both, and it worked out great. So it was a
Yeah.
fun day, a good memory.
I mean, I think it really, most of it is about perspective. I kind of share that same view that you have, that I think being a female pro is definitely an advantage because, like you said, you stand out. And many times I've been to a conference and like I'm the only girl there. And I went to the PGA show, right, last week, and there was a lot of dudes there, right? So yeah, I can definitely see how it's an opportunity for you to stand out and bring in opportunities. Obviously, there are still things that happen. I've had my share of them, that uncomfortable situations and things that just happen to, I think, a female professional. But I think those things could potentially happen to you in any career, right? In any type of job. So I do agree that it is more of an opportunity for you as a professional. And it is how you view it. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, I really have loved it. And that's a big reason why, like, I really do value my PGA membership and I love being an LPGA member. But I have always found, like, I'm just saying, because you are walking in a room full of men, basically. And
Yeah.
I really have found that they've been very receptive and I've had great experiences. And I do believe a lot of that was because of the path that was paved before me. So
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the groundwork was already done by other pros.
Yeah. And what about traditions? Golf is like tennis, has a lot of traditions. Even some like only allowing men, but any traditions, club traditions, golf traditions, do you think they're important? Why are they important? And I love to see how golf is so open to technology and new things, but also it has kind of managed to maintain its traditions. So, can you speak a little bit about that?
I think in many ways the traditions are really neat and unique because you don't find them at like most places. So for example, if you go to the Masters at Augusta National, you will not be able to bring your cell phone in there like at all.
Yeah.
There's like a no cell phone, so strict. And it's one of those things where when you go in and you walk in there, it's like a feeling like you have never had anywhere else, like this peacefulness. And it's so different inside the gates there. And then another thing, I mean, this is a club with a lot of tradition. That's why I bring it up, but you're not allowed to run on property. So you'll see these like grown adults doing a very fast walk. And it's hilarious, but no running. So a lot of those traditions are what make it so special. So as much as it's, I know that they do have female members there now, but at one point they didn't. And it's just understanding that eventually over time it is starting to change, and you do wish it would change faster sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
also one of the reasons why it is so special when you go in there. I mean, it is like there's so much pride in the tradition, and you really do walk and it's like you're on like holy ground when you're there. And I know like where we worked at Maidstone, they also have a very strict cell phone policy, and it does make a big difference that you're in a world that is everybody's on their phone all the time. To be there and have it just take a back seat is pretty refreshing. And so there are some things that are nice that because they are in the rules there in the traditions. But just in general, the etiquette of the game of golf is a big part of the tradition. With that, there's certain things like gentlemen will take their hat off when they shake hands, and then I mean that's one alone at the end of the round, shaking hands after you're done. So I've always, when I go play golf with my brothers, at the end of the round we shake hands, and it's like obviously that is something that was a tradition in golf that will always be something that we always do. And it is kind of this special opportunity to do these things that I guess the younger generation might not know. And if you didn't shake hands at the end of the round, it's just it's one of those special things
Yeah,
that I'm just
exactly.
so glad we do.
What makes it special? And I'd say it's the same thing, for example, with Wimbledon, right? In tennis, it's like that's why everybody loves Wimbledon because of all the traditions. You have to wear all white, which I think some people really don't like that, but at the same time, it's what makes Wimbledon Wimbledon and
Yeah.
on grass. There's not a lot of grass on the tour anywhere. There's just certain things about it that make it what it is, right? Make it special, right? But
Yeah.
I always find that topic really interesting and how to maintain traditions, but also stay open to technology and new things, right? So it's like which ones are worth keeping, which ones can we kind of modify or toss. So I always ask this, Megan, is and maybe you can help me come up with a term for this for golf, but I always ask what has been the grand slam moment and the double bagel moment of your teaching career, meaning the high and the low. I guess it would be like
I love it.
a birdie. I don't know.
I'm gonna have to put some thought into what we're gonna call that in the golf realm, but I like I can go with what the grand slam. I didn't know the double bagel though. That one I'm gonna have to have you explain to me, but But I would
Double
say,
bagel means like you get beaten 6-0, 6-0. So
oh
zeros look
wow,
like
okay.
bagels, so it's bagels. Double
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. So I would say as a coach, one, this is not the biggest moment for me, but one of the coolest moments, and I think you'll be on the same page with this too, is was coaching Roger Federer's kids at
Oh
Maidstone.
my gosh.
That
Yeah.
was so cool. So it was really, I mean, he's like seriously the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
And it was just like mind blowing to see him there, and his kids are just adorable. But what I thought was so cute is that he's like such a good dad. Like he would be hiding in the trees, like watching them, and it was just really sweet. Like he'd just be doing what a normal dad would be doing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I would say the like highlight of my career. Obviously, it's been nice getting the awards and stuff, but I wouldn't say that those were highlights by any means. It's more so been I really enjoy the golf schools that I do. That's the time when I'm like the happiest, is being able to work with a lot of people and see over a period of time. So like a golf school is kind of an immersion experience where they're spending half of a day or a whole day, when you can actually spend a chunk of time with a group and really see them change. It's just so rewarding that actually some of my favorite memories have been traveling across the country to maybe a new course and offering some of the programs that I offer. And that's been some of my biggest highlights, is the opportunity to do this across the country, which has been great. My biggest low, I would say I'm definitely affected if I don't give like a great lesson, or if you leave there and if you feel like you didn't really connect with them or something just didn't click. So I've
Yeah.
definitely had to invite people back and do a redo, because it just doesn't sit that well with me. If I feel like it wasn't the best, I always try to get them back in to see how we can make it even better. So, and then I'd say I also have like kind of a hard time, especially with kids, like if they're doing really well with their golf, and like you could tell like right when a kid is really talented, but if they're really hard on themselves sometimes, like, oh, I'm terrible at golf, and they'll say things like that, that it kind of just breaks your heart a little bit when you're like, no, you're not terrible. So one thing that kind of helps with that is with the kids, I always have like a rule where if they say something negative, they have to think of three positive things. So it's pretty cute because sometimes you'll see, well, actually, this is a story from Eden, the head pro at Maidstone. One day he goes, hey, I need to talk to you about something. And I said, okay, what? And he goes, well, I was out playing golf with my son, who at the time was 4 years old, and his friends. And he goes, and one of them hit a bad shot. And he said, oh man, that was awful. That was terrible. And he said, the other boys that were with him, all 4 years old, pulled him over and said, you can't say it's terrible. Let's think of three positive things.
Oh, I
And they
love
all
that.
sat in a circle and said, okay, well, you hit the ball. It didn't go very far, but you hit it. And then it went pretty straight. And then you held your finish at the end. So they all just sat there and found three positive things to reflect on. And he was like so shocked about it, because he said here he's watching these 4 year olds kind of get through that together. And so I've always found that kind of tough to hear the negative talk, but that's how I've tried to kind of come back at it, is give them rules like that. And it happens with adults too, obviously, but I'll try to like as well try to get them to reflect on the positive too. It can be a tough game.
Yeah, and like tennis, it's very mental, and I love that you're giving kids at that age, my goodness, those tools, because I didn't grow up with that. And when I got into competing in tennis, I was so negative, like so
Oh
negative.
wow.
And I can now reflect back and think, my gosh, like I wish somebody would have taught me all these things that I know now when I was a player, to manage my own emotions and my own mindset, right? Because that's really a huge part that's going to determine your success and your result, even, right? Is what you're thinking in the moment. So if you're just being negative, you're going to attract more negative stuff, right? So being able to change the mindset and thinking something negative, then letting it go and then replacing it with three good things, I think that's brilliant. I mean, I think we all should be doing that. All of us that are working with kids, we should be doing that. So
Yeah, and it was interesting because during COVID, I had several of like the older kids that I had taught contact me and say, "Hey, what I learned from you in golf, I've been able to transfer that to this really challenging time and find the positives in a negative situation," which I thought was really a cool reward, was to hear back from them and know that they were taking it into their everyday life.
yeah. And thank you for bringing up Federer, because that is such a special moment that we both share at Maidstone. You know, he would come every summer right before the US Open, and we got to teach his kids. And
Yeah, they're so sweet.
I've never been speechless when I've met someone until I've met Federer. I was truly, you know, we met some really cool people at Maidstone, but like, and some big names, but like I've never felt literally speechless. Like I could not get words out of my mouth when I first met him, because he was like meeting God. I don't know. Like
Yeah, he did not disappoint. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So no, that was so cool. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for sharing your experiences and knowledge with us today, and loved having you and catching up with you.
Thanks so much. I loved it. And it's great to see you're continuing to do amazing things. And I'm excited to get back out on the course and on the courts with you next time.
So you got to make some time for tennis every now and then. Who knows? Maybe your kids will like tennis.
Absolutely.
Oh boy, that would be trouble.
Well, they'll definitely play. I want them to play everything. So I think that's really important that they're not just forced to play golf, right? They'll be doing everything. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.